Thanks for tuning in to episode 9 of the Urban Scope podcast. We got another one, another good one for you today. So, today I want to talk about a couple of things. First, I want to talk about the Marlon Wayans interview with Club Shay Shay and Shannon Sharp. And very good, interesting interview. It seemed like um, he was very positive in his approach to this interview, and it was very purposeful in regards to his family and the legacy that they led. He was baited a couple times, I think, into questions about controversy, and Shannon Sharp kind of led him, well, tried to lead him into some controversial answers, but he always gave a positive feedback or a positive outlook. For example, with Jennifer Lopez, he asked about Jennifer Lopez. She has a reputation for being snobby, and she has a reputation for being difficult to work with. She has a reputation also for being looking down on others. But Marlon said, this wasn't my experience with her. As far as he was concerned, she always was respectful to his family. I always thanked them for what they did, the opportunity that they gave her. Um, she was just, she seemed, in his opinion, when he approached her, it was different. So a lot of times, a lot of people speak on, you want to speak on other people's perspectives and what they heard. But he said, hey, she has always been good to me. I don't know how many times Marlon has seen her since the In Living Color days, but he said every time he saw her it was always respect and love. So I think he was, I felt like Shannon kind of tried to bait him into saying something clickbaity when it came to Jennifer Lopez. And for some reason, Tommy Davidson as well. He bigged up Tommy Davidson, but I think he tried to get him to say something bad about Tommy Davidson too, to try to turn it into an interview similar to the Cat Williams one. But he did speak on the Vlad situation, which, I did a pod on the Vlad situation earlier and about your network and not letting anyone put a value on you. Vlad tried to, it was very it was unprofessional for him to say the exact price, how much he asked for, and what he asked for. That wasn't for open discussion. Now, if Marlon brought that up, then that's something different, but he never did. So, but aside of that, the interview was very good. I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know about his family and their influence on the industry. Definitely with the Super Bowl, he was talking about how the Super Bowl didn't have performers until I think it was 1980s. It was Michael Jackson was the first performer that they had, and it was a result of the Wayans brothers putting out an In Living Color special during a Super Bowl halftime show. Because they said before then they was just doing live bands doing halftime, and there was no performers or entertainment, really. So that was big, and just their family's influence on the industry and all the effects they had on people like Jamie Foxx, Jennifer Lopez, Tommy Davidson, Jim Carrey. He talked a lot about Jim Carrey and about how Jim Carrey's effect on how Keenan believed in Jim Carrey when other white studios didn't, and they were the first people to believe in him. And then after he left In Living Color, he blew up into this huge Hollywood star. Very energetic character, similar to a lot of the characters on In Living Color. But it was just a joyous interview, and you can just tell the passion that he had for his family and his brother specifically, and his sisters as well. I didn't realize he had all those sisters as well. But just growing up poor in New York, inner city New York, but they knew they was poor, but they never let that determine who they were. They always were rich in history and heritage and big in their family name, which I think a lot of people now don't do enough of, putting your last name first instead of putting your first name first. Your last name should come before your first name always. He was very big on his brothers and how they wanted him to do the family business of comedy, because they knew he was very good at comedy, but he wanted to go to college, and they allowed him to go to college and be himself, and then and eventually find his way back to comedy anyway. But like he said, his brother, I want to say Keenan paid for his first year of college, and he had a horrible GPA and his grades were terrible. And he said, "Hey, you have to pay for this on your own." He said, "I'm not going to support you in this if you're not going to take it serious." So I think Marlon went to school like maybe another year, and he left, which he went to Howard for briefly. Um, but you know, just a lot of the nuances of the business that they kind of went into. Uh, I aspire to be in the entertainment business and the media business. So a lot of the things in that interview you can learn from. He talked about how they got stifled and how they got shortchanged a lot in the business as regards to offers, and wanted to people wanted to change their art. You know, they worked countlessly on these movies and shows and stuff, but people didn't believe in it as they saw it. So they just had to shop around until they got the yes. Because a lot of times in the industry, they know you coming from these poor situations. You don't have a lot of resources, so they throw any offer at you and expect you to jump. But Marlon was kind of, telling the youth, we did it our way. Eventually your time will come. Don't just take any offer. And then when you get shortchanged, don't expect people to be um, remorseful or sympathetic towards your issue. Um, Specifically, he talked about how the Wayans Brothers show, they made that show after In a Living Color, and they shopped it around, and people kind of didn't believe in it, and they wanted the Pops, they wanted a certain character to play Pops. Um, and one network said, I think it was NBC. Yeah, NBC said that um, he was too ghetto to play the character. So, but they know they wanted John Witherspoon to play the character because that's what their vision was. Like they didn't let anybody alter their vision. They did on their own, and eventually, it was sorry when they got more money and stuff, they were able to control their own narrative and being able to not, for anyone to say no to them because they started getting the resources and the money. A lot of people don't know Keenan wrote the stand-up comedy for Eddie Murphy's Raw, and he also kind of spoke about Eddie Murphy and his influence he had on his life. Eddie Murphy was his favorite comedian, so he grew up. Keenan had a relationship with Eddie Murphy as well as Richard Townsend, and they were able to sit in the same house together. And he said they were a nuisance to Eddie Murphy because they were kids and they were childish, and he had these leather pants on, and leather pants wasn't in style, but Eddie Murphy was rich and very affluent at the time, and he was like the Kevin Hart of his day, and the kids didn't understand that, so they was picking on him. But then Eddie kind of just allowed them to do that, and he was very respectful towards them. But as he got older, Marlon looked up to Eddie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy bigged up his stand up comedies and his movies, and that meant a lot to him, as well as his brothers um, believing in him as well, because like I said, he wanted to do college at one point, and everybody's like, "Why are you going to college? We're working on movies, working on shows. We're trying to get, we're trying to establish something here." But he wanted to take his own route just to make sure this is what he wanted to do, and it eventually led to where he wanted to go. And just their work ethic was unmatched. They said they rewrote "Don't Be a Menace" 26 times, and they were just fed up. Like they just kept Keenan just kept saying, rewrite this, and no, that's not right. Let's do this over, and they did it 26 times, and that just shows the work ethic that Keenan had as well. I read the In Living Color book probably a couple years ago. It was a book written about the In Living Color show behind the scenes and kind of how it came together and the after effects and what shows and now kind of takes from their pedigree. Um, but it said Keenan was a workhorse. He would be at the studio working out on a treadmill or doing some kind of exercises at early morning before people even got in the building. And he was such a stickler for perfection. He wanted to give the customer or the consumer the best product that he can put out. He just didn't believe in just putting out stuff just for content. He wanted to put out the best. And it was kind of like a first show of his kind. So he was kind of drawing from, building something from scratch. So that interview, I think it's a very good interview for anyone aspiring to come up or anyone trying to follow their dreams and not be changed by society and what just because society has one rule, just don't mean you can make your own lane and make your own way. Um, and his relationship with Sean is very unique. They were closer in age than the rest of them because Sean is the baby of the group, but Marlon and Sean was like the closest. And I know both of their first children are named after each other. So Marlon's first son is named Sean. Sean's first child is named Marlon. So they have mad respect and love for each other, and they always talk so highly of each other, and uh, just the family in general. I mean, they're not in the media like they used to be, but they're still relevant to today's society. And it kind of got me thinking about their influence on the '90s, uh, well, just the '90s TV shows. Period. The effects that they had, and they kind of talked about. Do you think Shannon asked Marlon? Do you think there will ever be another era like the '90s TV show era? The '90s had all the best TV shows, in my opinion. TV shows are really not prevalent now. Everybody's doing, movies and TV shows now and stuff like that. I mean, not TV shows, but they're doing movies and like podcasts and short films and stuff like that. TV shows are kind of obsolete now. It's mostly geared towards like crime shows. But the '90s eras had the Martins. You had the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. You had the Wayans brothers show. Uh, you had TV shows like In Living Single and uh, even In Living Color. At one point, you had that TV show, but all of the TV shows from the '90s, In the House with LL Cool J, smaller one, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, things like that. But you had all these comedy shows that actually preached morals and values and the dangers of drugs and um, just had a message behind them. TV shows now are just, if they're comedy, it's just comedy, just telling you some random jokes, some scenarios. It gives you a problem for the show and they fix it, but it's not really geared towards a message, which, today's media is kind of lacking that. Just having a message and a purpose to the youth and people aspiring to be something better for their communities and their families as well. So yeah, that was my take on the Marlon Wayans interview. Very good interview. Go check it out. I watched the whole 2 hour interview. The interview was, like I said, it was geared towards mostly his family and their effect they had on the business of comedy and how they're underlooked and undervalued. A lot of people don't know about what they did. He expressed that in that interview, and I would recommend anyone to watch that interview. Uh, but on to another note, I want to talk briefly a little bit about the opening week NFL. On Thursday, they opened their season opener against Kansas City Chiefs versus the Baltimore Ravens. This game was in Kansas City, full attendance. Taylor Swift was in the building. Pretty sure Rob Riggle was in the building. He was beating on the drum at the beginning of the game. So very good game, especially to open the season opener with. Down to the last minute, it was very controversial at the end, but it was a good game overall. But I didn't like the new kickoff system. It's just terrible to me. Like it's basically designed for you not to return the kickoff back. So I don't even know why they just didn't change it. I mean, just leave it where it was, or if not, just give the team the football on the 25-yard line and start that way. Because pretty much kicking off now is obsolete, unless the kicker somehow short boots it to waste some time, or the wind is a factor and it doesn't go all the way in the back of the end zone. It's pretty much obsolete. Um, yeah, so kicking off is just a waste of time at this point. So just give the offense the football on the 25-yard line and just start from there and just keep going. Other than that, I mean, other than the legal formation calls, I think the guy got, I want to say on the first drive, he had like three penalties for illegal formation. Um, I don't know what the deal. I know they said they made an emphasis of this year of calling that penalty. but it messed up the flow of the game, even though the game turned out fine. I mean, it was a great game, but I just think it messed with the flow of the game sometimes because the game was moving smoothly until they kept calling those penalties. They pretty much stopped calling them after the first quarter, but it seemed like Baltimore wasn't adjusting to it. So that was something that I noticed about. And then, in my opinion, too, a lot of pundits and analysts on ESPN and FS1 are saying that this Lamar Jackson's year. He's got to do it this year. He has all the help he needs. He got everything. I don't see it that way. No disrespect to any of the receivers for the Ravens, but their best receiver is a 5'9" receiver. And you have to be able to place the football in a certain way. You have to be able to cater the offense around him. They did a bunch of end around plays and short passes, which you need to do when you have shorter receivers. They did that, but it's not like he has a Justin Jefferson or uh, Lamar. I mean, Jamar. I mean, Jamar Chase. He doesn't have one of those receivers like that. He has a bunch of pieces. Aguilar is, I'm surprised he's still in the league. He's dropped a lot of passes in his in the league and in the playoffs and big games. But he still has found a job in the league. Um, their receivers, Rashad Bateman hasn't been lived up to expectations like they thought he would. He was a first round draft pick, I believe, a couple years back, but he's not been the receiver that they projected him to be. They let go of Hollywood Brown to Arizona, who's now in Kansas City. Um, and I think, just Isaiah Likely was without him in that game, they would probably lost by at least two touchdowns or more. Isaiah Likely, the unlikely hero in that game, which he would have won the game if his toe wasn't on the line at the end of the game when the time expired. Um, Nobody expected him to be have a huge role in that game. Mark Andrews is just coming back off that injury, and he still has some ways to go. He caught a pass short of the first down and just kind of fell down, and they had to go for it. On their next down. So, a healthy Mark Andrews makes that play 10 times out of 10, probably. So I think he does have some pieces, but he don't have the pieces like a Dak Prescott or uh, Tua in Miami has. So, Derrick Henry he didn't play a bigger role as I thought he would in that game. Uh, I don't know if he's getting used to the offense or just like they was down a lot in that game, so they couldn't run it as much as they would like. I expected them to run the RPOs more. They didn't. Like I said, they was down a lot, so I felt like they were pressured to throw the football more. But like I said, he didn't have receivers that could get open. He didn't have receivers that could separate as much. And then the one receiver that you had could separate is 5'9", so even he would have to separate from probably about 10 yards from a receiver without them either batting it down or intercepting it. You can only throw it in certain spots. So like I said, Lamar didn't have the help that I thought he would. But Mahomes did have the help that we did thought he would have. He had Kelsey, which he didn't play a major role in that game, but um, as far as like Pacheco and the other receivers he had, they just played. I think they played a lot better. They were at home. We would give them that, so they're expected to play better. But from a all the way standpoint, he had the Rasheed Rices in the game who played a huge role, and even um, Juju played decently. But Xavier Worthy, the speed was there. It kind of reminds you of when they had Tyreek. He might be a little bit pretty. No, he's taller than Tyreek, but he's just up there in speed. He was very fast. The first play of the game when he touched the football, he scored. And he was just able to separate from most people. If the pass rush from the Baltimore Ravens didn't get there fast enough, he probably did a lot more damage than he did. But they do have an excellent defense, and they always been known for defense. They have those pieces, whether you know the names or not. They play their roles and they know how to play defense. So it'll be interesting to see as the season progresses what the Kansas City Chiefs will be able to do. with that offense, because like I said, with that play calling from Andy Reid and Mahomes' magic widgetry, what they can do with that offense, and they actually have more pieces than they had last year. And Rashee Rice, with the scrutiny behind him, he played very well. It'll be interesting to see how long he's suspended after he gets his legal issues, get those concluded. How long he'll be out, but they'll take a little hit when he's out. He's one of the senior receivers that they have, even though he's only in his second year. They got a lot of young receivers. So a guy like Sky Moore would have to step up, or Justin Watson, or somebody like that. And they do have McCole still. He was a 4-3 guy. Um, he's a little bit longer in the tooth than the rest of them, but he still has that speed, and he's able to run back kicks and punts. Kicks not so much now because, like I said, that's obsolete. But I digress. But yeah, it was an overall good game. A very great game for the opening season opener of the NFL season. Today, there's a whole slew of games that they have, and it'll be exciting to see that after such a. It always seems like the football hiatus is such a long one, so we're always excited to get that back. Well, so that's the episode I have today. Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.